Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. That's still my email. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing an iconic watch launched back in 2009 by Bremont of England. This is the Bremont MBII. The MBII 1 is technically identical, but you can only get it if you've ejected using the MBII ejection system, which means it's fairly exclusive, as fewer than 8,000 people have used that system in anger in its entire history. The MBII 2, that's a watch you and I can own. And again, it is technically identical. In surface-hardened, exceptionally scratch-resistant steel, the watch is 43 millimeters in diameter, 14.7 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 49.6 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. I'll throw it on my wrist, which you could see is 16 centimeters in circumference, and it's a good fit. And actually, the lugs are pretty far inboard. This angle always exaggerates the width of the watch, plus I'm pulling the strap tight. I could recommend this watch for a wrist slightly smaller than mine. So if your wrist is 15 centimeters circumference or up, you can wear this. Now, it's not a thick watch, but it's also not a thin watch. I recommend it for use underneath jacket cuffs. It probably won't slide underneath the tightest of dress shirts. Part of the reason Bremont watches wear a little bit small for their rated size is this particular triptych case construction where the lugs are sort of modular and they sit outside the canister that holds the movement in the dial. That really does mitigate the fit issues. And you can see that the strap is a combination of technical textile and then rubber on the bottom with plenty of channels to make it more pliant by removing material and also to vent the wrist on a hot day. We have the Bremont Buckle, which includes the company's propeller logo. You might wonder, is it Bremont or Bremont? Well, technically Bremont. There was a farmer in France, Nick and Giles English, the founder of this watch brand, emergency landed a vintage aircraft in that farmer's field, and they received his hospitality. As a mark of gratitude, they named their British watch company after the farmer. The farmer would have pronounced it Bremont, but it is officially Bremont because this is an English watch brand and they speak the King's English. You can see the buckle is a combination of polish and satin, and it's actually got an elevated bridge, which I like because that means you can see how the prongs are on the side on each side, but the bridge is elevated above them. That means the strap sits more flush inside the buckle, which means it's flatter when it's on the wrist. The mid case is actually anodized and knurled aluminum to reduce the weight of the watch and also give you a couple of different options. There are several different options in terms of the color available for this aluminum mid case. The black is the most utilitarian and tactical, and if you want to think of this as a military-inspired watch, which frankly it is, this is probably the best choice thematically. You can see the case is simple but strong with these lugs that expand over the edge, and then we have satination, a bezel with several different facets. The outermost, the sloped case flank above that, and then you can see that we have a nearly flat profile on top. So that's a 3-facet bezel, and you can see it's visually stepped in a little bit from the case band to visually thin the watch. The crowns feature the same lovely knurling as the case, and you can see we have both a bullseye and a propeller. On the dial, form follows function. Very simple. Like the analog instruments of a 20th century aircraft, radially arrayed indices and Arabic numerals. We have the company's unique, I'll stop it so you can see, curtain counterweighted seconds hand there. That is the curtain that you pull to activate the MBII ejection system. We have the company's 4-ball bearing roto-click bidirectional aviator's bezel. You operate that using the crown down at 4 o'clock. Roto-click is very precise. Unlike a lot of internal bezels, it has a really tangible detent that's a tactile pleasure to use. And you can see you line up that little index with the broadsword minute hand. Now you have a 0 to 60 minute count up timer. We'll do a lume shot so you can get a sense of the watch in the dark. All 3 hands loomed so you do know if the watch is running in the dark, which is critical. We have indices and numerals loomed, an enormous amount of lume on the hands, and you can see the index of the bezel is visible for timing approximation in the dark. You'll note London. Indeed, the watches include an ever-increasing number of British-made parts, and the final assembly is in the Greater London area. So British watchmaking coming back with Bremont, and then, of course, we have inside a watch movement that is Swiss in origin, but adjusted to chronometer standards in London by Bremont, which is why they advertise this watch as a chronometer to ISO 3159 standards, not expressly a Swiss COSC chronometer. ISO 3159 is used by Besançon, it's used by Time Lab, it's used by the COSC. It is the international chronometer standard, and that is the standard to which this movement has been adjusted. Now you can see there are some scratches on the case back, but they don't really extend to the rest of the watch. The only mark that I would call out is that there's a small mark on the bezel right between 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So pre-owned watch, always full disclosure. These are hardened steel cases, but they're not completely invulnerable. The movement inside is the Sellita SW220, which is Sellita's version of the ETA 2836, bidirectional automatic winding, 38-hour power reserve, stop seconds, quick set date, 4 hertz beat rate, 26 joules on the Sellita version, ISO 3159 adjusted in 5 positions, meeting that international chronometer standard. You can see there's a little symbol there, which means this is a shock-protected movement, not just with Inca block, that goes without saying, but with rubber elastomer isolation rings that go between the movement and the case to provide extraordinary shock resistance. All this 100 meters water resistant, and thanks to a soft iron Faraday cage inside, the watch has tremendous anti-magnetic resistance, particularly against electromagnetism. There is a bronze challenge coin style tested beyond endurance signature, and it's designed to evoke the challenge coins frequently carried by members of military units. Here's an example from our good friend Rob H. You can watch his collector conversation with me on Watchbox Studios, but he gave me this challenge coin from his company, Zero Eyes. It's gun detection in schools. So that is a real challenge coin right there, and that is what is supposed to be evoked by this multiply finished emblem in bronze. I should also mention that this watch has been through all of the testing that is undertaken to certify the Martin-Baker ejection system, which means it's been on a carrier flight deck. It's been through catapult launches and arrested landings. It has been through extreme temperature and altitude testing, shock testing, and the watch and the movement inside have survived all of that. So the watch has been tested beyond endurance, as they like to call it, although I would say it's probably been tested to the limit of the endurance. I'm not sure how much beyond endurance can be quantified, but this watch certainly pushes the limits of what can be expected from a traditional mechanical Swiss lever escapement watch. And it's British. You can buy it for your Jaguar, Aston Martin, or McLaren, and it would be a perfect match. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.